run right to the end. People come on, you don't need to be scared. 'Cause you're gonna love again.
Hi, you're watching The Heather Riffett Show Season 10, and I'm your host, Heather Riffett. The rise of new media has blurred the lines between what is real and what is fake. You now add AI in the mix, and it is a recipe for disaster, especially for journalists who are trying really hard to unearth the truth. How is the new media shaping US politics and the practice of journalism today? Let's find out more in this exclusive interview with Laurie Watkins, who is a former presidential appointee in the Obama administration at the Pentagon. She's also a media commentator, a global policy expert, and an author. Laurie, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Of course. Now, as I alluded to in my introduction, you have done so many things professionally and you continue to do them. How do you keep up?
I keep up by having fun and finding joy in the things that I'm working on and doing it with people that I enjoy working with and people that I respect and that I admire and value, especially the missions that they are trying to advance or the change that they're the catalyst of. That has to be of interest to me and bring me joy.
Right, right. And as I mentioned in my introduction as well, that we'll be talking a little bit about how information is changing ever so fast in today's fast-paced world, especially in relation to artificial intelligence and new media. Big tech companies happen to be the gatekeepers of information on social media websites, and they're not really good at gatekeeping because let's get that straight, because Facebook profits from the proliferation of extremism, bullying, hate speech, disinformation, conspiracy theory, and Reddit, according to a 2021 article. So, where does the solution lie, in your view, if information regulation is in the hands of big tech companies and they seem to be doing not a very good job?
Yes, unfortunately, it's like the fox watching the hen house, but even worse, because the government has not installed or put in any guardrails against these tech companies to put a check on them. That, for example, information just came out about pro-Israel and groups that have been paying and the amount of ads that were susceptible or put through certain platforms and what the percentage was that they reached people here in America. And it was staggering, the percentages of just from one group trying to push their extremist agenda. And then it broke that down even farther, and saturation into the MAGA community here in the United States was explosive. So we can see that that's working here based on the rhetoric. I'm just using this one example, of course, of a tension point here in America, that we can see the violent rhetoric, calling for violence against individuals, actual violence being had against individuals or at schools or at mosques or at temples is increasing. So that is absolutely concerning. The use of social media for disinformation has more than exploded. It's a tool now, I would call it like a soft tool of war that countries or terrorist organizations or adversarial groups try to push an agenda and a message that creates a movement that can be within an extreme group of individuals or ones that maybe a majority agrees with versus something else. But either way, it's being used as a tool that I'm finding right now in the political climate. I'll just speak to the political climate, that it's being used for more harm than for more good.
But how would you assess the practice of journalism in the United States under the Trump administration?
Journalism is extremely difficult. The president, especially against women, constantly calls them out, calls them names, belittles them when they ask questions that are based on wanting to know facts. They're not a criticism. They're not a slight, but if this president doesn't like it, he then retaliates, withholds, people's badges are pulled. We've seen at the Pentagon, where place where I used to work, where Secretary of Defense Hegseth has just instilled another ban basically on reporters and journalists by accessing individuals or information by he thinks this is a cute little maneuver. And this is absolutely what people should pay attention to, again, as a tool to disenfranchise or prevent facts coming out. You try to shut off the pipeline of information, right? And in this case, it's journalism, by making SCIFs, compartmentalized, secured, compartmentalized facilities where journalists, if you don't have a top secret security clearance, you can't go into. So then to say, oh, well, if you don't have a badge and you don't qualify, you can't come in here. These are the kinds of tactics here in the United States that are being used by our own governmental officials to prevent information from coming out. And that's extremely dangerous, because journalism is where facts and information are sought and presented to the public. If we lose that, we lose everything. If we lose the right to vote, we lose everything. So those are also with voting, that's a huge source of disinformation. If you'll allow me, we had a president go on camera last night and use his bully pulpit to create doubt and in my opinion, sow division in our electoral system that has been proven for over 60 years that it is secure, it is safe, and it is uncompromised. And out of billions of people that have voted over 40, 50, 60 years, the amount of discrepancies is less than 1%. Less than 1%. So we don't have election or fraud or an unsafe election system here in the United States. But right now, that is what you are seeing this morning, for example, of headlines, because someone very powerful like our president has said so. So, and now organizations are coming out to fact check him. And his own chair of the Intelligence Committee, back when this report was done in his administration, said that there was no fraud. So it's almost like double the work to try to correct disinformation that was spread on social media or through the use of traditional media, the news, which, to answer your question, is why I think more and more people are going towards social media to get their news. They no longer have cable. They no longer are subscribing to platforms that subscribe local news or even national news. They want unbiased, unfiltered opinions from I will call them non-traditional journalists. And that is where they are getting a lot of their information. Now, I think it's important that people get their information from credible sources. I'm not saying don't get it from people who are non-traditional journalists, but just make sure that they are credible. And you might be asking me about that. What makes a credible person? Why should somebody want to follow them? I can just speak for myself, and that it has taken years for someone to think that you can just instantly become a trusted voice and source out there and people should listen to you. That's not how it works, and it shouldn't work that way.
Right.
It should take time for people to see what you do and say. Can they believe you? Do the things that you say live up to the actions and the impact that you're having out there? Do those things align? And if they do, then this should be a person that you continue to go to for information, that you can trust that the information that they're giving you has been sourced, that it is credible, and that if you went out and repeated this, that you wouldn't look like a fool because it's the truth. It's not a lie. And you're not going to be part of the problem in an echo chamber of people repeating things that are not true.
It's an interesting point that you made about non-traditional journalists, also, people listening to them. And there's so many commentary and podcasts
Yes.
out there that are opinion-based and are shaping public opinion, which can be also accepted as reality. So do you think that sets a very dangerous precedent in this age of new media and AI as well?
I absolutely think that it is a potential danger or harm, but I also see a lot of good things in it. For example, when I go on television as a media commentator, I'm going on as a media commentator to give my opinion.
Hmm.
as a person who is an expert, a strategist who has worked and had lived a professional experience in a lot of these domains or advises people. If I'm a journalist, it's because I'm writing or asking questions and I'm coming at it from a completely unbiased, agenda and filter that I'm looking through to get facts and information. If I'm writing, it's the same thing. If I'm writing an op-ed, that's very clear. It says opinion piece at the top. I think the more details and more descriptive people can be, it doesn't mean that you can't be a bunch of different things. That I think is a beautiful thing right now, that we're not boxing ourselves into one area. We're actually able to be a couple of different things at the same time. But be clear about that. Be clear in the lens through which you were operating in when you produced whatever it is, whether it's whatever medium it is, but also absolutely upfront be honest with the audience, whoever your audience is, of what they should be expecting or looking at it through. That you're
Right.
not trying, so they don't feel that you're misleading them, because that goes back to what I was saying about trust.
Hmm.
It can take a long time to build trust, but it could take a second to lose trust.
Yeah.
So by using your platform and showing people and building that trust and confidence, you can become a trusted source pretty quickly by people that a lot of times I enjoy when people say, you said what I have been wanting to say that's in my head, or you're saying what other people I feel are too afraid to say. That gives me a lot of motivation and courage to keep going on. I still do it in a way that I will get invited back on. That's another topic for another day,
Yeah.
of using the time that you have been given on these platforms to accomplish the mission, whatever that is, of staying on message and whatever your message is. Being ethical while you're doing it, being honest and truthful with the people that you are speaking to, and not compromising your own values and professionalism, and don't disrespect somebody at the same time that you are either giving your opinion or telling a story that somebody else has given you the information, told you the story. Do it in a respectful way. That's the way that I always operate.
Yeah. And even if you develop a credibility as a non-traditional journalist, there's still an issue of verifiability on social media that is also blurring the lines between what is true and what is not true. Many of these individual social media users are getting their information from sources that seem credible. Should they be trusted? Should they not be trusted? So the issue of verifiability is also a major concern. Where do you see where do you see social media users who go to these different social media pages or websites that are not verified? So, do you think there needs to be public awareness about this? There should be a social media awareness about going to the right people for news and the right sources for news?
100%. Please, please, please. If you are spending any of your time looking at a screen or tablet or whatever, that you're doing it through and listening to people and spending your time with people that are giving you accurate information, because it is doing you a disservice and it is doing your community, your country, wherever you're living, and the world and our global order a disservice by perpetuating disinformation. And you might think that you are harmless, right? That, oh, I've listened to this person for a long time. I've seen over my lifetime, I'll say in the last 10 years, let's break it down even that smaller.
Yeah.
People have changed. People that I used to listen to somehow got compromised in some way. I don't want to say radicalized, but their values may have changed to where I'm like, oh, okay, I don't, or maybe it was a man that got accused of something that I'm like, okay, I can't listen to you anymore. I'm choosing not to because of your personal life. But that also goes to like my trust and confidence with you listening to what you're reporting. For me, I'm just giving you for me.
Yeah.
That might happen for people that something has happened where someone was compromised, that they valued their opinion and their sourcing of news. This has happened to a ton of journalists, by the way. So here in America.
Yeah.
that you go to see where they're getting their information. That's what I look for. So a lot of people, credible, will cite it while they're saying it. Say a video, for example, in such and such, it's, reports that blah, 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 blah. Look for those things. If the sources that they're citing are things that you've never heard before, or that you have trouble finding online, or there is no web link to a story, or only one story exists, remain curious about that and continue doing further digging to see if there's any other credible sources. Use AI. This is a place where you could actually use the AI. I'm in a lot of areas where I help clients right now is strategic communications, also lobby and advocacy work, but mostly strategic communications right now because of AI, in fact. For communications and journalism, AI has been amazing. Why? Because when people go to AI, where do you think they're pulling from? They're pulling from media sources. They're pulling from credible journalists. They're pulling from reputable media sources where they can pull this information to give to people for answers and responses and helping them with their commands. So if that doesn't exist, if the data and information doesn't exist by journalists and people feeding it information, then the information given by AI is going to be less credible, less accurate, the efficacy is not going to be as strong as if you had good journalism feeding that pipeline. So I just want to put that out there, that good journalists are actually providing good information. And that's also why it's important that we weed out and get out the bad disinformation and make sure that these platforms are not continuing to promote it or allow people to make money off ads that perpetuates harmful material that is really causing further division.
Yeah, and I wanted to follow up on AI as well. AI and information dissemination by media agencies seem to have also blurred the lines between what is accurate and what is inaccurate. And you mentioned something about verifying sources from AI because they get that information from those reputable sources as well. But in academia, we've also been taught that AI also tends to hallucinate. It might present information that you also have to cross-verify and cross-check. So sometimes, depending solely on AI, can also be kind of like misleading. So you have to cross-check that as well, just to put it out there. But we
Thank you.
have deep fakes. We have deep fakes and AI images that also further put fact-checking efforts at risk, mainly for journalists. So specifically from a journalistic standpoint, where do you think is the pathway forward for journalists who are unable to verify news because of deep fakes and AI being integrated with news?
Again, thank you for bringing that up. That's a great point that we need to make for everyone here, that there's disclaimers, right? Not everything is perfect. Absolutely. I'm not gonna, please don't think I'm sitting here as woo, I'm all about AI dominating
Mhm.
our universe and our industries. No, but I am using it. I'm finding some benefits out of it. And my clients are as well. And I'm seeing how there are benefits in media that can have a positive impact. And I want to be a part of that versus the other alternative, which is the negative and constant spreading of disinformation, which is harmful. So where do you get your sources? How do you fact check even on AI? You continue to do your digging. And this comes to personal responsibility.
Yeah.
If you are going out there and going to make a claim or say something or repeat something, you damn well better know that it's fact. That's how I operate every single day. And if I get something wrong, I immediately address it or make an edit or go back and change a caption, etc., because that information is really critical. For example, everyone, you were so lovely in giving an introduction about me, right? But I suspect from what I heard you read that came from, if not all or most of it, maybe from AI, but from my website. It's important that the information you're putting out there about yourself is accurate, and that if you see information that maybe somebody else put out there about you, that you also make sure that that's accurate. And if it's not, that you address that and deal with it. Don't just let it go by. There are ways to try to get things corrected, go after people. And if you find also that someone stole your intellectual property, your rights, your work, your writing, something like that, a lot of that would fall under IP, music, anything like that, that you take action, because we need to do that. Because again, there are not really strong guardrails in place unless it is through the court system to file suit, civilly, criminally, whatever. You could show damages about things like that. So, but the more and more people that are harmed that come forward, it shows that there's policies that absolutely need to be addressed by lawmakers sooner than later.
These were wonderful insights. Thank you so much, Laurie, for sparing time for this interview. I really appreciate your insights. That is all for now. Stay tuned for more on my official YouTube channel and Facebook page. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.